In my Nine Souls video, I talked a bit about what I thought made the game's story so good. In fact, that's basically the only thing I talked about. While storytelling is not exclusively what I want to discuss on this channel, this video is definitely not going to help my case. It was the part of the game I found most impactful, so it made more than enough sense to focus singularly on that topic. I wanted to provide concrete reasons as to why the game had affected me, but to do that, I needed to make sure I got clear on what Nine Souls was actually about. That proved easier said than done. In all honesty, I found Nine Souls a challenging game to analyze. What was the game about exactly? But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. If we want to have any hope of answering that question, we first need to know what's even being asked. That too is easier said than done. When people say, "What is this story about?" it usually means one of two things. One, they're asking you for a plot summary, or a general idea of the kinds of topics and genre elements they should be expecting when they engage with the story. Two, they want to know the ideas it's trying to get across, what the story is trying to say. In other words, they're asking about the story's themes. I want to focus on that second meaning because I feel I don't often give, or get, very good answers to this question. Warning, I am going to start sounding like an English teacher. When you ask someone what the themes of a given work are, you'll very likely be met with responses like family, the power of friendship, death, or how grief manifests within us as examples. But do any of these responses classify as the theme of a story? Remember, a theme should tell us the answer to the question, what is this story about? In that context, I don't think any of these are themes. This list is full of concepts and topics. They're themes in the same way Hawaiian might be the theme of your high school dance. But that's not really what we're looking for here. Okay, our story is about family, but what about family? What about the power of friendship? At least in all of my language arts classes, it was hammered into our brains that a theme was a complete sentence. Now, I don't think that's entirely accurate either, but it definitely gets us thinking in the right direction. A better way to put it might be this. A theme is a complete idea. It is an argument the text is making about its topic. And therein lies the problem with that list we considered earlier. When we say the theme is family, we're given the topic of choice, but we haven't yet made an argument. It's an incomplete answer. We could, however, easily expand this. Instead of saying family, we could say family is important. This is a theme because it's now making an argument on the topic in question. But you might feel unsatisfied with the answer at this point. It sort of feels like we've just played a semantical game. Surely when people say the theme is family, its importance is being stated implicitly. I would have to agree. Though these semantic changes have technically altered our response from a topic to a theme, family is important still isn't a good answer to the question. There's a reason. Family is important is a boring theme. It's cliché, yes, but there's a much worse problem. It's also vague, unspecific, lacking in any relevance or insight that might make you resonate with the struggle of the story's characters. Themes should say something generalizable about us as people, but they also need to say something specific about their topic. Family is important, sure, but why does the story actually think this? A better theme might be, family is important because it allows for the rich transfer of culture and tradition from one generation to the next, forming the backbone of civilization. Without family, a person will lack that coherent structure that gives their lives meaning. Now here's a theme with some specificity. It's admittedly very wordy, my specialty, but it's something that we should be able to find solid evidence for in the text. It's an interesting foundation from which we could analyze from multiple angles. We could imagine, in the hypothetical story which has this as its theme, explorations of characters with and without coherent family structures, or non-standard family structures, giving rise to several sub-themes about what it even means to be a family. It's important to mention that themes do not have to be so rigid in their construction. A question and answer format is a perfectly valid way to get across a theme. We could ask a question like, can an institution which has abused its people ever regain their trust, and how might it do this? The theme, the argument the text is making, would then be the specific answers the story has to this question. The only thing a theme needs to be a theme is a declarative stance on the topic, even if that stance turns out to be ambivalent. Let me be clear, it is my intention with this video to ruin your life. Every time you hear someone describe the theme of any story, be it from a book, movie, TV show, game, I want you to think back here and ask yourself, is what that person just described really a theme? Because more often than not, the answer will be emphatically no. And if you do manage to get an answer that's a theme and not a topic, chances are it won't be a very good one. Let's also be clear about another thing. I am not casting aspersions when I say most people are not describing themes, nor am I trying to say people are dumb for not being able to do it. You've probably already eked out the biggest problem with my conceptualization of themes. It's a lot of work. It's hard. In fact, it's probably the hardest question you could possibly ask about a story. When someone says, "What is this story about?" they're asking you to pull out the heart of the story, the glue that connects the entire thing together. They're challenging you to interpret all of the evidence and take a concrete position on the material, to stake out a piece of yourself and put some credibility on the line. That takes some time to come up with a good answer. I know it takes at least a few days of sitting on a game for me to come up with something cogent to say about it, and even then I'm definitely not always successful. Case in point, 9 Souls. What is the game arguing again? My thinking was that it had something to do with, he who is unable to live for himself is just a dead man walking. I thought it was a statement that applied as much to the Solarians generally as it did to Yi. Did I get that right, though? It would have been easy to say, for example, that the game wants to punish the Solarians for not accepting the natural order when they attempt to reach for immortality, given that the game is drenched in so much Daoist imagery and repeatedly uses its precepts as the basis for its characters' perspectives, that the game is trying to argue that it is wrong to fight against death. But I was hesitant to accept this. The existence of the ape men within the story made me think this is an incomplete explanation. The ape men add an enormous moral dimension to the conflict that must be accounted for, and the closer I looked, the more I felt as if the Solarians needed to be destroyed for a more specific reason than not following the teaching of the Tao. More precisely, it seems like 9 Souls is saying the belief in the Great Tao could have prevented the Solarians' moral failures. Yi clearly has a sense of morality and justice that his mentor lacks. The Council's lies to the public are what sends him on his revenge quest in the first place. So Yi participating in the Eternal Cauldron project is something quite unnatural to him, that Yi is fooling himself in some way to think this is the right course of action. I think we're supposed to read Yi's dark joke about the ethics of brain harvesting as delusional. In tandem, a key principle of Daoism, articulated by the game, is Wu Wei. Wu Wei does not suggest that we should do nothing, but rather proposes a kind of effortless action, doing the things which come naturally to us, riding the current instead of fighting against it. Consequently, I think 9 Souls wants to suggest to us that the moral transgressions of the Solarians are so blatant, so unbelievable, they come unnaturally to any sapient being. In order to believe harvesting ape men is a good idea, you would have to be fighting against yourself, your very nature as a moral being in the world. This, I think, is where 9 Souls interjects its Daoism, that upon looking at the situation, and after seeing the only option for survival is so heinous, it would in fact be our inclination to give in to the Tianwo. The Solarians were not incorrect for trying to fight against it, that is a perfectly fine response, but the methods used were so heinous as to be irrational. This is why I take it to mean that Yi destroying New Kunlun is what connects the moral angle with the Daoism angle. That allowing the ape men to continue as a species is what the Great Tao would suggest to do, because that is a perfectly effortless thing for Yi to want. In that sense, it's less that 9 Souls is suggesting something about Daoism per se, but more so about the kind of society we ought to want to exist in. Yeah, see what I mean? All that work just to try and uncover a single theme. So if there's one thing you should take away from this video, it's to be very careful when asking someone, what's this story about? You may be asking for far more than you realize.